Something satisfying happens the moment you walk into a room. Before you speak, before you smile, before you introduce yourself, a judgment is made, and here is the part no one tells you. That judgment takes 100 milliseconds, faster than a single heartbeat, faster than you can blink. In that fraction of a second, the people around you have already decided whether you matter. Princeton psychologist Alexander Todorov proved this. He showed participants photographs of faces for just 100 milliseconds, then asked them to rate competence and trustworthiness. What he found changed everything we thought we knew about first impressions. The ratings made in that tenth of a second matched ratings made with unlimited time. More exposure did not change the verdict. It only made people more confident they were right. So here's the question. What are they seeing? What are you broadcasting in that fraction of a second that makes people decide to ignore you before you have said a single word? This is the presence shift, where we decode the invisible signals that determine who commands the room and who gets ignored. Today, I'm going to show you the 4 signals that trigger instant dismissal. These are not surface behaviors you can fix with a tip. They are patterns operating beneath your conscious awareness, broadcasting low status through channels you cannot directly control. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is happening in those first moments. You will see why some people command attention effortlessly, while others fade into the background no matter how hard they try. More importantly, you will understand the internal shifts that change these signals at their source. This is not about performing presence. It is about rewiring the system that creates it. Let us start with signal 1, the facial broadcast. Your face is being judged before your mouth opens, and the judgment is not about whether you are attractive. It is about whether you are safe. Todorov's research revealed that the brain evaluates faces on 2 primary dimensions. The first is trustworthiness. This accounts for over 63% of how your face is evaluated. Faces that resemble happy expressions read as trustworthy. Faces that resemble angry expressions, even subtly, even when you are not actually angry, trigger avoidance responses in others. The second dimension is dominance. This relates to facial maturity and structure. Together, these 2 dimensions, trustworthiness and dominance, determine how others categorize you in that first tenth of a second. Here is what makes this so difficult to address. Your resting face, the expression you wear when you are not consciously managing it, is broadcasting signals you cannot see. When you are nervous, your face tightens. When you are uncertain, microexpressions flash across your features faster than you can control them. Other people read these signals automatically. Their brains evolved to detect threat in faces. And when your face broadcasts tension, their threat detection activates. Todorov's research on political elections proved how powerful this is. Competence judgments from 1 second of exposure to candidate photographs predicted nearly 69% of United States Senate race outcomes. 1 second. No policy positions, no speeches, just the face. And here's the disturbing part. When participants were given more time to deliberate, their predictions got worse. The gut reaction outperformed careful analysis. This leads directly to signal 2, the warmth deficit. Social psychologist Susan Fiske spent decades studying how humans evaluate each other. Her stereotype content model identified 2 dimensions that account for 82% of how we perceive others. The first is warmth. Is this person friend or foe? The second is competence. Can they act on that intent? Most people who feel ignored focus obsessively on demonstrating competence. They work harder. They achieve more. They assume that results will command respect. But Fiske's research reveals a trap. Competence without warmth does not create admiration. It creates envy, and envy triggers sabotage. In Fiske's model, people who are perceived as competent but cold land in what she calls the envious prejudice quadrant. Others will use their services. They will benefit from their work, but they will not advocate for them. They will not protect them, and when the opportunity arises, they will actively undermine them. Research showed that when participants felt their own competence was threatened, they became significantly more likely to derogate cold but competent targets. High performers serve as threatening mirrors, and the defensive response is to devalue them. This is why smart people do not get respected. This is why qualified people get overlooked. They are signaling competence without signaling warmth, and the human brain, evolved to detect threat, reads competence without warmth as dangerous. Someone who can hurt you and might want to. The shift from envied to admired requires warmth signals, cooperation cues, indicators of benign intent. But here is where it gets complicated. You cannot perform warmth. Fake warmth reads as manipulative, which is worse than coldness. The warmth has to be real. And real warmth comes from your internal state, not your external behavior. Which brings us to signal 3, the nervous system leak. Neuroscientist Stephen Porges developed polyvagal theory to explain how the autonomic nervous system shapes social behavior. His key insight is that your nervous system state becomes visible to others through what he calls the social engagement system. This is an integrated neural circuit that links your facial expressions, your voice, and your heart rate regulation. When stress activates your sympathetic nervous system, observable changes occur automatically. Your eyelids droop slightly. Your voice loses its natural inflection. Your face appears flat or masked. Positive expressions dwindle. Porges coined a term for the unconscious process by which the nervous system evaluates other people. He called it neuroception. This operates through primitive brainstem circuits that continuously scan for safety and danger signals. When you're anxious, your neuroception broadcasts that anxiety. Others detect it without knowing what they are detecting. Their nervous systems respond to yours. Anxiety is contagious at the neurological level. This explains why the advice to just relax never works. Your nervous system does not take orders from your conscious mind. When your sympathetic system is activated, a cascade of physical changes occurs that you cannot override through willpower. Muscle tension, shallow breathing, increased heart rate, and critically, a category of movements that researchers call self-adapters. Self-adapters are the behaviors you do to soothe yourself when anxious. Face touching, hair twisting, hand wringing, fidgeting with objects. Research from the University of California, Davis found that self-adapters directly correlate with perceptions of emotional instability. More self-touching means being perceived as more neurotic and less emotionally stable. Here is the problem. You cannot see yourself doing these things. Your nervous system operates below conscious awareness. You think you are sitting calmly. Everyone else sees the fidgeting. You think you look confident. Everyone else sees the tension in your shoulders, the micro movements of your hands, the slight mask on your face. Eye contact patterns reveal nervous system state as well. Research established something called the visual dominance ratio. This is the proportion of time spent looking while speaking versus looking while listening. High-status individuals maintain more eye contact when speaking and less when listening. Low-status patterns reverse this, and people default to patterns matching their internal sense of their own status. Your nervous system decides where your eyes go before you consciously choose. The fourth signal is perhaps the most overlooked. Signal 4, the voice collapse. Within the first 10 seconds of speaking, listeners form impressions of your competence, authority, and leadership potential based solely on how you sound. Research suggests the sound of your voice matters approximately twice as much as the content of what you say for perceptions of authority. 3 vocal patterns reliably trigger dismissal. The first is vocal fry. This is the low, creaky voice pattern where your vocal cords vibrate together at the end of sentences. A study by researcher Casey Klofstad found that over 80% of listeners would be more likely to hire someone with a normal voice than one with vocal fry. Speakers with vocal fry are perceived as less competent, less educated, less trustworthy, and less hireable. The second pattern is uptalk. This is rising intonation at the end of statements, making them sound like questions. Research participants identify uptalk with 79% accuracy and associate it with uncertainty and lack of confidence. Because rising intonation mimics questioning, listeners interpret statements as though the speaker is unsure of everything they say, even when expressing expertise. The third pattern is trailing off. This is when your voice loses energy and volume at the end of sentences. It communicates that even you do not believe your message deserves attention. A self-fulfilling prophecy. Here is what connects all 3 patterns. They are all symptoms of the same underlying cause, sympathetic nervous system activation. When you are anxious, your breathing becomes shallow. Shallow breathing means less air support for your voice. Less air support means your voice thins at the end of phrases. It means you do not have the breath to maintain pitch and volume. The vocal collapse is not a speaking habit. It is a nervous system symptom. Klofstad's research on voice and leadership demonstrated that both men and women select leaders with lower-pitched voices. Lower voices are associated with physical strength, social dominance, and competence. But here's the critical point. Vocal pitch rises when the sympathetic nervous system activates. Anxiety makes your voice higher. Stress makes it thinner. The voice patterns that trigger dismissal are direct readouts of your internal state. So what do you do with this information? The standard advice would be to fix each signal individually. Make more eye contact. Stop fidgeting. Speak from your diaphragm. Smile more. But this approach fails for a specific reason. All 4 signals have the same source, your nervous system state. Trying to override signals while the source remains unchanged is like trying to stop a fever by holding ice on your forehead. You might mask the symptom temporarily, but the cause continues operating. The shift happens at the nervous system level. Porges' research points to vagal tone as the key variable. The vagus nerve is the primary communication pathway between your brain and body. When vagal tone is high, the parasympathetic nervous system dominates. Heart rate naturally slows. Breathing naturally deepens. The face relaxes. The voice drops. The signals that command attention emerge automatically because the internal state has shifted. You cannot will your vagal tone to change, but you can train it. The most direct method is extended exhale breathing. Before entering any high-stakes situation, breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 8 counts. The extended exhale directly stimulates the vagus nerve and shifts your nervous system toward parasympathetic dominance. But the breathing alone is not enough. While breathing, you need to shift your internal narrative. The nervous system responds to how you frame situations. If you frame a room as a place where you will be judged, your threat detection activates. If you frame the same room as a place you are observing, curiosity activates instead. Same room. Different nervous system response. This is not positive thinking. This is pattern interruption. The frame of observation, I'm here to notice what is happening, activates a different neural circuit than the frame of performance. I'm here to prove myself. Your body responds to the frame. Think about the last time you walked into a room and felt small. The conference room, the networking event, the interview. You were not making a mistake. Your nervous system was in a state that broadcast low status. You were sending signals you never knew you were sending. And now you understand why. The people who seem to command attention effortlessly are not performing confidence. They are not running techniques. They have trained a different baseline nervous system state. When they enter rooms, their internal state is already calibrated for presence. The signals follow automatically. This is what separates real presence from performed presence. Performed presence cracks under pressure because the underlying state has not changed. Real presence persists because the source has shifted. You cannot fake parasympathetic dominance. You cannot perform genuine warmth. You cannot consciously control microexpressions. But you can train the system that generates all of these automatically. The practice is simple, but not easy. Every day, before your first high-stakes interaction, run the 90-second reset. Extended exhale breathing combined with the observation frame. Every time you notice sympathetic activation, physical tension, racing thoughts, the urge to fidget, treat it as a signal to reset rather than something to override. Over time, you're not just managing your state in the moment. You are raising your baseline vagal tone. You are rewiring the default setting. The 4 signals that make people ignore you share a common root. Your nervous system broadcasts your internal state through channels you cannot consciously control. In 100 milliseconds, before thought, before strategy, before anything you might call technique, your state has already been read. And the verdict has been rendered. The shift does not happen by changing what you do. It happens by changing what you are when you walk in. Stop trying to fix the signals. Start training the source. Presence is not performed, it is rewired. The shift has already begun. If you want to understand what is really happening in every room you enter, subscribe. The next video goes deeper into the psychology of how status hierarchies form and why your brain ranks everyone you meet in milliseconds.